The director of the FBI says China is blocking efforts by the United States and others to investigate the origins of COVID. In an interview with Fox News, Christopher Wray said the agency has assessed that the virus most likely came from a potential lab incident in Wuhan.
I should add that our work related to this continues, and there are not a whole lot of details I can share that aren't classified. I will just make the observation that the Chinese government, seems to me, has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate the work here, the work that we're doing, the work that our U.S. government and close foreign partners are doing, and that's unfortunate for everybody.
Now, on Monday, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby disputed that this was a definitive conclusion for how the pandemic started, following a report from the Department of Energy that concluded it has low confidence the virus most likely leaked from a lab. Yesterday, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said China has, quote, always been open and transparent about COVID. I think we can all fact check that one. Joining us now, Dr. Kavita Patel. She is an MSNBC medical contributor and a former Obama White House health policy director. Dr. Patel, great to see you again. The origins of COVID, of course, have become very much a political issue. But for the medical community, tell us why, if at all, it matters where it came from.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think it matters for a number of reasons. By the way, there's an entire spectrum with it being a natural spillover event from animals to humans and potentially leading to the Wuhan market super spreader scenario, all the way to lab leak, and then to the other extreme, kind of a bioengineered, weapon of mortality, weapon of death that all of us have seen, unfortunately, globally. So I think that for medical personnel, public health personnel, and especially lab and science officials, it's very important to get to the bottom of this, because for decades, many of us have been calling on efforts to standardize what we do to regulate lab processes. And so if it is a lab leak, and that does not mean it's necessarily an intentional event, just to underscore something. But if it is a lab leak, it just calls all the more to the surface the things that we need to do to make sure that our scientific processes, not just in the United States, but around the world, are standardized or held to some rigor. Honestly, Jonathan, like many things in public health and science, that comes with resources that we would need as well. And that conversation is absolutely not happening right now about what would we do in the event that this was a lab leak? What are the changes that we need to make? That's what we need to talk about, too.
Yeah, we should note, as you did, the agencies that suggested it could be a lab leak, none of them have offered any evidence that it was done deliberately. So let's have an update, please, as to where we stand right now in the fight against COVID-19. Here it is, March 1st, 2023. Where do cases stand in the United States? How many deaths are we still seeing? What do you think's next?
Yeah, Jonathan, we are seeing around the world and in different parts of the world just incredible, dramatic decreases in rates. I will say that what we've always said, though, here on your show and in general, I've tried to remind people that we also look at deaths and hospitalizations. We are still settling at unfortunately, hundreds of deaths a day, especially in the United States, and they tend to be in people who are older, people with chronic conditions, and we're starting to also tease apart populations that have not necessarily been boosted anytime recently or had any natural infection. So these are people that are really deficient in any immunity to protect them. Having said all of that, I would say that as you probably are discovering, majority of the world is kind of resuming. People are back in work, people are back in school, in person. There are good things about that. But we are trying to do is make sure that we've got surveillance efforts to look for any of those new variants, especially as they pop up around the world. And that's something we can't let our guard down. And again, something that I'm hoping that we can continue to do with not just funding from Congress, but support from the World Health Organization around the globe.
And Dr. Patel, lastly and very briefly, you just mentioned the idea of new variants. Have any emerged right now that appear to be a concern?
Not variants of concern. There are new variants that emerge, but nothing that is causing concern. They could be infections, severe infections, leading to more hospitalization. So again, good news on that front, something to keep an eye on.
All right, we certainly will be keeping an eye on it, and we'll be checking in with you regularly. Dr. Kavita Patel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.